Traumatized people often do not have a clear sense of purpose and direction because they can't check in with themselves about what they truly want. Since they can't feel anything in their bodies, they don't know what they want. Emotions like desire and passion and contentment drive us to our purpose, and without being able to feel these emotions, we can't know what we enjoy or don't enjoy. In effect, we don't know who we are. The overall effect of trauma is usually described as a loss in the feeling of aliveness, motivation, excitement, and purpose. This is because trauma robs people of agency, self-leadership, the feeling that you're in charge of yourself. People who have parents that ignored their needs to learn to anticipate rejection and withdraw. They cope by blocking out their anger or rage or fear or shame, and by acting as if it doesn't matter. But the body keeps the score. It remains in a state of high alert, prepared to ward off blows, deprivation, or the experience of core wounds like abandonment, rejection, and betrayal. And this is shown in brain scans. Those with chronic PTSI have almost no activation of what are called the self-sensing areas of the brain when compared to non-traumatized subjects. They are dark. Brain imaging studies of trauma patients find unusual activity in an area of the brain called the insula, which regulates basic survival needs by integrating and interpreting information from the body's sensory organs and transmits fight, flight, or freeze signals to the amygdala when necessary. In people with stored trauma, these signals are firing all the time. There is no conscious influence. People who have unresolved trauma constantly feel on edge for no apparent reason. They may have a sense that something has gone wrong or a feeling of imminent doom. Trauma is an injury caused by fright, helplessness, loss, overwhelming fear, or possibly even lack of control. Trauma happens when the severe injury causes an autonomic nervous system response that stays unresolved. It's not a disease or a disorder, just an injury. This is why many psychologists argue that PTSD should actually be called PTS-I, post-traumatic stress injury. The best book that explains this is called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He explains exactly how this process works. The book that really opened my eyes was also Peter Levine's book, In an Unspoken Voice, How the Body Releases Trauma and Restores Goodness. I can highly recommend both of these books. There are many great books about trauma, but another one I can highly recommend is The Body Bears the Burden by Dr. Robert Scare. He actually worked with Peter Levine. Another great book is Scared Sick by Robin Carr Morse, who connects psychology, neurobiology, endocrinology, immunology, and genetics to demonstrate how chronic fear in infancy and early childhood, when we are the most helpless, lies at the root of common diseases in adulthood, and the Adverse Childhood Experience Study has proven this. This is another great book, Healing the Fragmented Selves of Trauma Survivors by Janina Fisher. And then also The Heart of Trauma by Bonnie Badenoch. And then Trauma and the Body by Pat Octon, the founder of sensory-motor psychotherapy. And then The Impact of Early Life Trauma on Health and Disease, The Hidden Epidemic by Ruth Lanius, to name just a few. All three responses are deeply ingrained biological responses to survival threats: fight, flight, and freeze. When we are able to get the response out, then we are fine. But when we don't, it gets stuck in the body and causes all kinds of problems. One thing to understand is that trauma is about the nervous system's response to an event, not necessarily the event itself. Events can affect each of us very differently. That's why some soldiers can come back from war fine, but others never get past it. It's not the event that's necessarily traumatic. It's the way both the body and the mind handle it, and whether the body is able to let the trauma go. But regardless, all of us have traumas in our lives. Every single one. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions about this. I can only tell you what I believe after decades of studying this and treating many, many trauma survivors in clinical practice, as well as dealing with my own traumas. I believe it's because of how they handle the traumas. People who feel the emotions from the trauma and work through them are able to release it. But for those that do not work through it, the trauma can, in essence, get stuck in their body. Alcoholics Anonymous has a saying: the issues are in the tissues. And that's quite literally scientifically true. The energy of the trauma seems to get physically stuck in the body. Our childhood traumas are not really formed by the actual events that happen to us. These traumas form by the feelings left unprocessed in the absence of an empathic witness. Trauma teaches you to survive these intense emotions by coping, defending, and avoiding being triggered. Healing teaches you to thrive by feeling, releasing, and owning your triggers. People who suffer intense traumas and are not able to release the energy from them shut down the feeling sections of their brains. The emotions and feelings of the unresolved trauma are overwhelming, and so they, in effect, turn them off so they can survive. Which makes sense. If you are constantly feeling the pain of the trauma, your body and mind can't handle it. It has to turn it off to go on. That's a rough trade-off, though. In order to shut off the terror of trauma, the PTSI victims also shut off all emotions, and thus their ability to feel anything good. To get rid of the bad feelings, they lose contact with all other feelings. This is why so many trauma victims report feeling so empty inside. Trauma is not easy to see. If your brain is hiding the trauma feelings from you so that you can function, how can you even know they are there? Only indirectly. Blankness is one trauma response. Other trauma responses can be ADD-type behaviors, extreme emotional reactions, addictive behaviors, and almost anything done to regulate your nervous system and calm it down. Why does it work like this? No one is precisely sure. There is so much we don't know about trauma. My best guess, based on research and clinical experience, is that because trauma overwhelms the body, unless you're able to deal with it in the moment, your body hides it, in a sense, to keep you safe and alive. We do know that trauma exists in the mind in a very different place from language, and there has never been an effective treatment for trauma that only involved talking about it. This is especially true for children. Children need confidence, confidence that others will know, affirm, and cherish them. Without that, they can't develop a sense of agency that will enable them to assert what they believe in, what they stand for, or what they will devote themselves to. If a child feels safely held in the hearts and minds of the people who love them, they will feel they can do anything, and probably can, within the range of their skills. If you want to get past your trauma, you must feel your emotions surrounding it so that you can let them go and then integrate the experience into yourself. That is why Dr. Dan told you that MDMA might make things worse before they get better. This medicine does not erase bad memories or even neutralize them. It opens you up and brings the bad memory and corresponding difficult emotion to the surface, so you can actually feel it and let your body have the healing response it could not have when the event happened. The medicine helps you match the emotion to the experience. Most people with PTSI can tell a coherent story about their trauma and even experience the pain associated with the trauma, but they often continue to be haunted by unbearable images and physical sensations. No matter how much insight or understanding they develop, the rational part of the brain cannot talk the emotional brain out of its felt reality. To put it as simply as possible, we don't think emotions, we feel emotions. Thus, you can't talk your way out of trauma. You must feel your way out of trauma. We use talking to try to help you feel those feelings, but the feeling is the work, not the talking. That's why I say the work is between the words. Another simple example. 90% of your serotonin receptors are in your gut, not your brain. Thus, the term gut feeling, because you are literally feeling it in your gut. Roughly speaking, thinking is in your brain, feeling is in your body. However, feeling the feelings by itself is often not enough. You must feel the feelings in a safe emotional place, usually with an empathic witness. Going back to trauma by itself does not always release it. Usually, you must provide the brain with a new option. You create a new experience of that trauma where instead of getting stuck in it, you have an empathic witness who helps ensure your needs are met and your longings for love are validated. You basically tell your emotional brain that it's safe to go back to the trauma and re-experience it because now you have the love and support you need to be able to let it go. That's a deep simplification, of course, but that's what therapy is at its core.